in the last section, we saw that making a change to our index.js file and then rebuilding the image caused the copy step to be completely invalidated. We had to rerun copy and every step after it, which means we had to sit through and wait for all of our dependencies to be installed through run npm install. So in this section, we're going to try to figure out a way to avoid having to completely reinstall all dependencies just because we made a little change to one of the source code files inside of our project. So here's what we'll do. We're going to take our current build process inside of the Docker file, and we're going to split the copy operation out into two different steps. The only thing that npm install right here requires in order to run successfully is the package.json file. That's all we care about. We don't care about the index.js file or any other file inside of here. So during this initial copy step, I'm going to say the only thing that I want to copy is the package.json file. So I just changed the instruction right here. It now says look in the current working directory, or look in the directory specified by the build context argument of Docker run, or excuse me, Docker build, and find the package.json file. And then copy that into the current working directory of the container. We'll then run npm install. And then after we install all those dependencies, we'll copy over everything else. And so we'll do a copy .. like so. So think about what is going to happen now as you start to work on your project. You can make as many changes as you want to the index.js file, and it will not invalidate the cache for either of these steps right here. The only time that npm install is going to be executed again is if we make a change to that step or any step above it. And so in other words, the really only effect this is going to have is if we make a change to the package.json file. That's really the only situation in which npm install will normally be executed again during the build process. All right, so let's try building this again and then starting the container up and just making sure that everything still works. All right, so I'm going to flip back over. I'll do a docker build -t, Stephen Greider, again, your Docker ID, not mine, simple web, and then we'll specify the build context with that simple dot. So I'm going to rerun this. Now we have made a change to the Docker file, so we are going to see some steps rerun, and then we eventually get our successfully tagged and built image. Now before trying to run it, I want you to run the same command a second time. So same thing, no changes whatsoever. So that time it went extremely quickly because we were able to use the cached version of every single step. So now let's imagine that we are doing some normal changes to our application, and a normal change would probably be a change to the index.js file. So maybe we decide that we don't want to say bye there anymore. Maybe instead we want to send back, how are you doing? So we've now made a change to the index.js file, and we definitely need to rebuild our image because we do not have any support for kind of hot reloading of the index.js file or a project file into the container. So we have to rebuild the image. So I'll go back over. I'm going to rerun the same command for a third time. And we saw that it executed very quickly because the only change that we made to any step along the way was step number 5. We copied over the entire contents of that directory. Docker detected that we made a change to one of those files, and so it reran that step and every step after it. But we did not have to rerun the npm install step and reinstall those modules, which would have taken, in our application, not very long, but in a real application, it could take several minutes to run. All right, so the real lesson to learn here is that yes, it does make a difference, the order in which you put down all these instructions into your Docker file. And wherever possible, it is kind of nice to segment out the copy operations to make sure that you are only copying the bare minimum for each successive step. All right, so that's pretty much it for this application. Now, I hope that it was not terribly annoying for me to show you kind of like some of the wrong way of doing things and then correct them along the way. I hope that it was kind of nice to see the error messages appear and see the changes that we made. Of course, we could have put the right Docker file together from the get-go, but I don't know, you probably may have not learned quite as much as seeing the errors occur and then fixing them in as they occurred. Now, I think this application has turned out pretty well, but it's definitely a very, very basic operation. So let's take a quick break right now. We're going to come back to the next section and we'll start working on a much more advanced Docker project. So I'll see you in just a minute.